Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It is your host on the coast coming to you from somewhere off the coast of nowhere. What I'm looking at this evening is an article from Politico, which is a great app I have on my iPad here, with a lot of political information, and they had this very interesting article. I am always very interested in JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who he was, his life, his just everything he did, his policies when he became president and everything. And we have this article here. It says why we still don't have the JFK assassination files. And of course, this is the one of the photos from November 22nd, 1963. Hey, where were you? We're all the old people, we all remember. It says almost 59 years after those rifle shots rang out in Dealey Plaza, left the president mortally wounded, and changed the course of history, there are still secrets that the government admits it is determined to keep about the November 1963 assassination. So this article, it's rather long and in-depth. I just kind of skimmed through it. I'm going to go through it a little bit more right now, and then I'm probably going to have to read the whole thing again later. It says more than 14,000 classified documents remain locked away, mostly in the National Archives. And it says that is in clear violation of the spirit of the landmark 1992 Transparency Law, and that law came about because of Oliver Stone's movie, JFK, all about the many multitude of players that were involved in that event, or could have been involved. We still don't know, although we've probably gotten a lot closer lately. So, newly released internal correspondence from the National Archives reveals that there has been a fierce bureaucratic war over the documents in recent years, with the archives going against the CIA, the FBI, and other agencies that want to keep them secret. The correspondence that was revealed, someone got it, doesn't say who, through the Freedom of Information Act, that the archives has tried and failed to insist that other agencies comply with the 92 law by declassifying. It says the struggle was very fierce in 2017 when the president at that particular point in our country's time, look back on that in a few years and we're all going to go, what the hell were we thinking? Trump sided with the CIA and the FBI, which makes me laugh because so many of the uber-Trumpers were like, when he gets in, he's going to do this and that. Oh, I remember them all talking about, oh, and he's going to release all the documents, blah, blah, blah. But the man sided with the CIA and the FBI, keep them secret. It says he agreed to waive a supposedly concrete legal deadline, and I remember we were all waiting for that year to release all the classified documents. That had been on many people's radars for a long time, and for whatever reason he chose not to do it. So I'm not sure how all the QAnoners feel about that, because they were just like thinking he was just going to be this miracle man. Biden ordered another review to allow more to be made public this December. We'll see what comes from that. Trump released nothing, and it looks like Biden has made an effort to actually release things. I'm thinking maybe that Trump did that to kiss the butt of the CIA and the FBI more than he did it for the reason because of secret documents. Internal correspondence from the archives helps resolve one lingering mystery about the documents. Recent negotiations, they justified keeping any secrets about a turning point in American history, an event that has always inspired, yes, blah blah blah, conspiracy theories. So they're justifying it. The archives correspondence reveals, for the first time, their detailed justifications. So they're getting a little more granular on why they must keep these secret. And it appears the documents contain the names and personal details of still living intelligence and informants from the 60s and the 70s who could be at risk of intimidation or even violence if they were identified. So that's what they're saying. This is a really interesting article because it also reveals in here, well, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. That is my way, but I'm not going to do that right now. The sources, many elderly, if not close to death, it says many of the sources are foreigners. Living outside of the USA means it would be more difficult for the U.S. government to protect them. CIA has withheld information in the documents that identifies the location of CIA stations and safe houses, and this also, interestingly enough, includes several that have been in continuous use since '63. So these are safe houses, and they call them station houses, where they would conduct business and so forth. Let's see what else it says. Paperwork shows that the FBI and the Drug Enforcement Agency, interesting, have fought particularly hard to protect the identity of the informants in organized crime. Interesting, isn't that? They are saying people are going to believe this was a blowback from Bobby Kennedy's war that he had against organized crime. There are books on that. I have one myself, very good book. Bobby Kennedy, he went after them hard. And you might be able to find a lot of that footage on YouTube. Very interesting. Go look it up. Go look at, I would say probably look up Robert Kennedy and mafia trials. He had all these hearings and things. It was very interesting. I mean, he grilled these guys, and I'm sure they held a grudge. It says, in fact, the correspondence shows the overwhelming majority of the documents that the FBI has withheld from the public in recent years is involving organized crime. Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, made a special plea to black out names of 6 confidential informants identified in the files. The agency said in a 28 letter to the archives, who've been constantly trying to get these. The archives are very interesting. Look at what they've done recently, making huge efforts. I think the people that work there are very dedicated to information and making sure this information is stored and housed properly. When they went after Trump for just, I mean, what a madman to just be taking those documents. I'm just going to take them home with me. I'm not sure how many people who have any kind of a job where they're dealing with classified documents. I know myself, you can look this up, many people have gone to jail and done life sentences, near enough to, for taking classified documents home. And sometimes there were perfectly good reasons for that. Also taking computers home with documentation on it. Many people. So why does this man who was merely doing a job, it was just his job, He's not the king. We can't forget that. Why is he allowed to take home all of these documents? And then the archives, these people want to do their job, are saying, hey, we want him back, and they're asking politely, kindly, nicely. Oh, and then the FBI had to go raid him because, dude, you're not King Tut, okay? You're just a man who did a job for a while. I'll tell you, when that power's gone, it's usually gone. So, the DEA made a special plea to black out the names of, I guess this must be 6 living confidential informants. Well-documented propensity for violence by the mafia, it is reasonable to expect the individuals, if alive, remain in significant danger of retaliation for their assistance. So this is the DEA trying to protect its informants, and I know they make great efforts to keep their informants safe, because with the mafia, it's not going to be the informant, it's going to be the informant's family, anybody around them. So you have that situation. It says the internal correspondence and emails from the archives were provided to Politico by someone, a New York lawyer, who filed a federal lawsuit last month against Biden and the archives, demanding release of all these still classified assassination documents. I'm going to have to look this. Oh, the Mary Farrell Foundation. If you want to see so many interesting things about the Kennedy assassination, go to the Mary Farrell Foundation. It's a website, and the name is spelled Ferrell. There is so much there, and I'm glad to see that this foundation is still on the case and trying to obtain these. So this lawyer, I was wondering, like, why would this lawyer? So this lawyer is representing. It's amazing that you have to go and sue for something that was already supposed to be released. So this lawyer is going at the behest of the Mary Farrell Foundation, the Assassination Research Group, to get these promised documents. Even though he is now suing the National Archives, he said in an interview he's impressed by the aggressiveness of archives officials in trying to force the other agencies to abide by the '92 law, which called for the declassification of all assassination-related documents within 25 years. How many of us are going to be alive to see when this actually happens? So we can put this to rest and finally put all the pieces of the puzzle together. 1992 law, called the Assassination Records Collection Act, was adopted by Congress. This was way back in the days when Congress was actually doing more important work than grandstanding about. I'm not even sure what. Do they get any work down there at all anymore? Wanting to deny women even simple birth control. How much of their time is relegated to BS? Everybody's got to make a name for themselves, because this is the important stuff right here. And this was when they used to work together more on important stuff. So this act was adopted by Congress in hopes of controlling, in '92 already, the conspiracy theories whipped up the JFK film. They're saying in that movie, they're saying it was coming down to Lyndon Johnson wanting. I never believed that. I'm not one of those that believes it was Lyndon Johnson who was trying to do a coup d'etat to overthrow the government. As a result of the law, millions of pages of documents were made public in the 90s that changed, the way we had been looking at it. The declassified documents so far I'm going to add, do not offer conclusive proof of any sort of conspiracy. But they did reveal how much evidence, predominantly about Oswald, had been held by the CIA and the FBI from the Warren Commission. Although the Warren Commission anyways was a bunch of hocus pocus. Some files declassified as a result of the law. The article goes on to say, I strongly suggest that the CIA Mexico station covered up evidence of its aggressive surveillance of Oswald during his mysterious trip to the Mexican capital just weeks before Kennedy died. It's just amazing, in his short 23 years on planet Earth, this man, Lee Harvey Oswald, had such an impact and did so much. I mean, he was just 23 years old. The documents show that if the CIA station in Mexico had acted quickly on what it learned in September and October, Kennedy may have survived the assassination. So, that's a sad picture of... my theory is Oswald knew something. He was involved, but there were others, and I'm not convinced he shot that gun from the book depository. I'm not convinced at all. I think it was a frontal shot, not a back of the head shot. In 2013, the CIA's in-house historian concluded that the spy agency had conducted a benign cover-up during the Warren Commission investigation to keep the agency on what they thought was the best truth, that Lee Harvey Oswald had acted alone. There's much pressure to keep this, that he acted alone. Let's see. In 2018, correspondence with the Archives of State Department requested that portions of 31 documents be kept secret because of national security once again and foreign affairs. The correspondence shows that the archives, which has housed the assassination records for decades, had long warned the CIA, the FBI, and other agencies that they are failing to abide by the 92 law. If they can provide evidence that was clear and convincing of a substantial risk of harm to security or foreign policy. And I guess they're not doing that. They're just saying, no, we don't want to turn that over. And then, of course, when all this was going on in 92, the commission that was looking into this was regularly lied to by the CIA and the FBI, and they were also, at that point in time, secreting the documents and not giving them to them. In 2017, the officer of the archives protested the FBI's decision to continue withholding names of confidential sources, especially those that came directly out of the case files of Oswald and Ruby, lest we forget Ruby. These files clearly relate directly to the assassination. He said, this archive chief said, it's difficult to imagine circumstances under which an individual could be harmed by the release of their name in the JFK collection. But the protests by the archives were overruled by Trump. His decision in October 2017 to waive the deadline surprised many in the government, since Trump had been an enthusiastic conspiracy theorist for decades, including the Kennedy assassination. And he once promised, there you go, see, we have memories here. We know what's going on. He had promised transparency in releasing the documents. So it looks to me like he wanted to keep all those people on his side, a favor for a favor. Oh, here we go. In the campaign, Trump repeatedly promoted a conspiracy theorist that the father of Ted Cruz was somehow tied to the assassination, based on some kind of a photograph that's standing next to a man who resembled Cruz's father. Come on. Please. Please don't elect people like this anymore to office anywhere. In deciding to withhold thousands of documents, Trump said he was convinced they contained information about national security and foreign policy of such gravity that it outweighs the public interest in immediate disclosure. I'm sure he didn't write that. Somebody wrote that for him. But he offered no specifics about his reasoning. Oy, yay, oy. And under that law that was written in 92, there's only one person who has the power to not release documents, and that is the president. That is the only person by that law who could say, no, we're not going to release those. And that man Trump could have been the hero, but I think he has some backdoor dealings there. So Biden's reviewing everything now. We'll see if he releases more. I'm hoping he does. But his written order disappointed many historians and assassination researchers, since Biden, like Trump, left open the possibility that some documents will remain classified forever. Well, I'm not sure, because Trump didn't release one piddly thing. Biden's order said he would allow documents to be withheld if their release might do identifiable harm to military, defense, intelligence, law enforcement, or foreign relations. Okay. The archive said in a statement to Politico magazine that it had recently completed its review of the still classified material and provided its recommendations to Biden. They said, we looked at every single redaction in these documents. He said his team is continuing to negotiate with all those agencies. A spokesman for the CIA said the agency was working closely with the archives. Well, I'm sure there might be concerns, but we'll never really know the real concerns of what's going on here. Archives officials and others in the government have cautioned for years that the public should not expect to find bombshells in these documents, at least none that can be easily detected. I'm always so amazed at how many people have spent so much of their lives and have found so much critical information about everything to do with this murder of our president, and continuing to this day doing all of this research. So there might be pieces of a puzzle that have been missing for many of these researchers who have not given out all of their information yet. You know, there's ways for people to also collect things and get their information that they need. And they might need a few more other pieces to fit the puzzles that are out there that we don't even know about. So, no matter what Biden decides, 500 documents and other items will remain secret. Among there are documents produced by federal grand juries, the IRS, and tax and employment records of Oswald Ruby and many of their associates. And I know from my journeys through websites and YouTube videos, these are mightily important and could fill in many holes for many of these researchers. It also includes tape recordings of 6 interviews with Jackie Kennedy and his brother, Bobby Kennedy, who was authorized by the Kennedy family. This journalist did them to write a history. Those tapes were turned over to the one thing that's amazing to me is the Kennedy family still controls, even though they've given many things to these archives, they were able to keep control over who and how and when and where so many of the documents and personal effects get looked at. These tapes were turned over by the Kennedy family in exchange for an agreement. Oh, here you go. That they would not be made public until 2067. I'm not going to be alive then. I didn't know that they did that. Why would they do that? The law also exempted the public release of what Archives Index describes as 5 very personal letters that Mrs. Kennedy wrote to President Johnson, including at least 3 she sent to him in the week after the assassination. Oh, God, we'll never see that. Not in my lifetime, but miracles can happen. Why did they want this? 2067, come on. Oh, God. The people in the future, hello, how are you? Do you know who did it yet? This is 2022 talking to you. What has been on the Manchester tapes has long tantalized historians. He later wrote in his memoirs that he recorded 10 hours of conversations with Jackie in which she offered detailed accounts of events in the days surrounding the assassination, including a description of the horrifying scene inside the limousine as the shots rang out in Dealey Plaza. She withheld nothing, he wrote. The interviews in Mrs. Kennedy's home in Georgetown were bearable only because of the cocktails they drank throughout, he said. Future historians may be puzzled by the odd clinking noises on the tapes. They were ice cubes. The only way we could get through these long evenings was with the aid of great containers of daiquiris. And we've not been able to hear those. That is fascinating. I'm not sure. So he wrote a book called The Death of a President, but it doesn't look like much of the nitty-gritty was in that book from those recordings, but I might have to get that book. It's called The Death of a President by William Manchester, who was authorized by the Kennedy family to write a history of the assassination. I'm sure you all know that Kennedy's brain is missing, right? Where did it go? How can the President of the United States brain go missing? That's what happened. All right, my babies, I think I'm gonna cut it on that. Oh, this was an interesting article too. The warning about Trump that JFK never got to deliver. It speaks to the way he felt about how our country was headed. This is a speech he was going to be giving, but he wasn't able to give. This was the speech he was going to give, and then, he didn't have a chance because he was killed in the car with his wife sitting right next to him. Nice. Really nice. He says what was on his mind and was going to be in that speech was domestic extremism, disinformation, and the corrosive effect it could have on the U.S. He said he was the speech writer who wrote the speech. I don't know if it's made public or yet. Said he was going to talk about voices preaching doctrines wholly unrelated to reality. Wow. Which he feared could handicap this country's security. I'm constantly amazed how people want to live in a delusion. When you read some of the screeds, and we're having many people going out with their guns and shooting down people. They are choosing to live in a state of non-reality, and it is making America a very unsafe place to live. This article says that Kennedy plans to say, "We cannot expect that everyone," to use a phrase of a decade ago, "will talk sense to the American people. But we can hope that fewer people will listen to the nonsense." Tried and true ways of thinking, and the nonsense does have to stop. But people make money off of it. You can go on this site here, YouTube, many great educational things. That's one of my main things I watch it for. I have a few of my channels that I watch for fun and games, but mainly I'm on here. I like education. I'm watching I've watched so many great videos here and learned so many great things. But this can also be a very scary platform for extreme disinformation, and people are getting sucked up into it. It can be just a vacuum cleaner. Can you hear that sound? That's your brain being sucked into non-reality. Alright, my babies, I'm gonna go now. I'm wishing you a wonderful evening. Love yourself. Love those that you're around. Try and make it a beautiful day tomorrow, and do the best you can.